all through life, you're going to run into temporary people who make permanent decisions. Don't let them get in your way. When you run into those people and they're the no, 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 can't be done, no, 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 that means no, they can't get it. They can't get it done. So you always have to find out if you're going to be an entrepreneur and if you're going to be successful in sales, and all forms of business involve some form of sale, you have to turn a no into a yes. So what I'm going to try to talk about in some senses here with you all is kind of how we've done that throughout the years. And the easiest way for me to do it is just to tell you what my journey was. It was a constant battle with that, and then finally they called me in and they said, look, you're either going to be a GM guy and you're going to be a corporate guy and you're going to do what we tell you to do, or you should really leave. And I remember that day, it was in 1986, I think it was, where I looked him in the eye and I said, I am not going to have a job where I have to wear a suit every day. So there are things we say when we're young that we don't really mean, or that we don't know what we're talking about. But I then went out on the road with my band, and we were on the road, we were recording, we did a couple records. You ever heard of a band called Guns N' Roses? We went out and toured with them and did a bunch of shows with them. A band called REM. We went out and did a bunch of shows with them. A band called the Bangles. We did our first show with them actually at Campbell Hall here, which was cool because the singer was hitting it at the time with Prince, so he was sneaking in and out. So Prince has been to this campus, just so you know. And I had a great time doing it. And I moved to Los Angeles in, I think it was April 8th of 1988. And I went down and got another job working at a swimming pool store, and then I was recording. And every night I went into the studio, and we were recording singles and demos and playing shows. And I was just having a great time. I think it was 1990, and we were headlining Fiesta, and I was really happy because they were paying us like $5,000. And I'd written about 300 songs, and we were playing all originals, and I thought, this is what I've always wanted to do, which it wasn't, but it was just a passion of mine. And I was like, this is going to be the coolest thing. And when we pulled in and we did our sound check, this van pulls up, it's the opening band, and the door is not even affixed to the side of the van. It's like a bungee taped on, or bungee cord. And I thought, God, this is really terrible. And anyway, door pops open and these guys roll out of the van and they start setting up their gear, and I look at the guys and I go, okay, I'm now 30 years old, and the guy that's in the opening band for us, who's about 42 or 43, was the hottest musician in Santa Barbara when I first came up, and all I wanted to do was be him. And I remember sitting there thinking, I don't want to be him. I don't want to be that guy doing this at that point. I don't know where I'm going to be health-wise. I don't know where I'm going to be, if I'm going to be married or have kids or any of that stuff. And I thought, okay, I really need to get serious. And I've always been successful enough in terms of what I've done to do whatever I need to. I need to really kind of figure out business. So I was dating a girl down in Los Angeles, and her parents were in the entertainment business, and her great-grandfather was a guy named Louis B. Mayer. Any of you heard of MGM? Okay, he's the mayor from MGM, which was the biggest studio in the history of Hollywood. All of the stars were at MGM. So every Sunday night, her mom would have a dinner at their house, and they would invite people over. So I had, once again, my hair was your length, and I was usually wearing like jeans and Beatle boots, and was kind of doing my rock thing. And I would come in, and I would sit with my girlfriend and her mom and her brother, and they'd always have guests there. Every week there was some other kind of Hollywood legend that was there. And everyone would say, you know, I don't know about your band, but you should probably do something in the entertainment industry. And then I started looking at the talent agencies. And when I started looking at the talent agencies, every time I would talk to the friends of the family, they would say, you'd be a great agent. So when I started investigating what it took, I found out you had to have a college degree. And then in addition to having a college degree, you had to have at least 2 years of experience in the company mailroom, and then it could take 3 to 4 years to get promoted, depending on what would happen. So I sat there and I went, so that means I'll be 35 if everything's perfect. Okay, my philosophy is going to be this. I will outwork every person here, and I will do this in record time, or it'll kill me. But that's what I'm going to do. So I went and I applied to all the agencies in town, and every agency said the same thing. We are never going to hire you. Yes, you have a college degree, but you have no real entertainment experience, and your hair's too long, and you look like you're wearing your father's suit. So one of the, I went to a temp agency, and I said, can you guys place me someplace? And they said, we'd love to, but your hair's too long, and you look like you're wearing your father's suit. We're not sending you out. So I said, okay, look, I can get a haircut, and I think it's discrimination when you say that to me, and my sister's an attorney, so at the very least, you've got to give me a typing test. And that was my secret weapon. I'm a guitar player. I type 70 words a minute. So as soon as I walked in and went like that, they said, okay, come in, work here at the temp agency. You'll be here for about 6 months. We'll find you something. So I came in the next day, long before 9/11 and security and all these things that we all go through now. I just walked into the building and said, hey, I work at this place now, to the security guard, to the janitor or whatever. I said, can you open the door? And he did. I walked inside. I figured, okay, my first day, I'm going to make a coffee. I'm sure I'm going to have to do that at some point. So I found the coffee machine, started making it, and the phone rang. So I answer the phone, and the woman says, hi, it's Liza Rivera from the William Morris Agency. We have a really difficult agent who can't keep an assistant, and I need the most mature person you have who can deal with difficult people. And in one of those how to succeed in business without really trying moments, I was like, his name is John Ferriter, and I will send him over right now. That was the first job I got for somebody. That job lasted 19 and a half years, by the way, before I made a switch into what I'm doing now. So I went over there, and I looked around, and everybody there was somebody. Their father was someone. They were related to someone. They were all in the entertainment industry, and I didn't really know anyone. I knew my girlfriend and her family, and her brother, who was the head of casting for Aaron Spelling, which, by the way, was a great job, because all he did was interview every beautiful girl in town for their shows and put them all, he discovered every single one of those, like the hot actresses from the 90s. And he's the only one I knew, and I knew his assistant. So when I went into William Morris, I walked in, human resources loved me, they put me in the room with this guy. The first thing he said to me was, who do you know in the entertainment industry? If I'm going to make a call right now, who can I call who can vouch for you that it's worth me hiring you and giving you a job? And I said, well, I know Tony Shepard. And he goes, I don't know Tony Shepard. And I thought, the only other person I knew who was really in the entertainment industry was Kim Schimmel's husband. And his name was Mark Schimmel, and he was a manager or something. And I said, and I know Mark Schimmel. And Dick Howard looked at me and he said, you know Mark Schimmel? All right. He picks up his phone and he calls Mark Schimmel. So I'm thinking, I'm out of here in 60 seconds and I am never coming back in this. And he picks up the phone and he says, Mark, it's your cousin Dick. And I went, all right. And he goes, I'm sitting with this guy, John Ferriter. I'm thinking of making him my assistant. Should I do it? And Mark Schimmel said, you absolutely should do it. You should hire him. He's hungry as hell. He's smart, and he will make your life easier. I'll see you Sunday. Hung up the phone, and I got the job. Mark Schimmel, to this day, is the COO of Epic Records. He's L.A. Reid's partner. Okay, so he's doing pretty well. And he could have said, I don't know who he is, or I think he's dating the sister of the guy that my wife works for. He could have said anything else. But the fact that he said, yes, hire him, that's how I got that job. So as we talked about at the very beginning, when I kind of started on the career, most people as assistants, and all of you as you graduate, if you get into some of these businesses before you start up your own, and you may start up your own, they may be successful, you may start them and they may fail, but at some point you're going to be answering somebody's phone and getting their coffee and getting their laundry. Okay, you all know that, right? Okay, everybody has done it. Steven Spielberg did that. Jeffrey Katzenberg did that. David Geffen did that. George Clooney did that. Everybody did that. So suck it up when somebody says there's not enough milk in this. There's the old line: a friend will help you move, a good friend will help you move a body. Welcome to Hollywood. So when I started at William Morris, and I actually was promoted in record time. I was promoted 2 years to the day that I started, and I was excited. I was now an agent. So I decided I need to accelerate my career since I started at the age of 30, 31 coming into this, and everybody else started when they were 22. So what I did was I said, I'm going to go do something big. So I looked everywhere I could, and I found 2 names. And I said, these people don't have agents, I'm just going to go sign them. And then people will have to deal with me. So I picked up a cover of Vanity Fair, and the it girl at that moment was a guest model named Claudia Schiffer. I basically tracked down her attorney, because I knew every straight guy in the world wanted to sleep with her, and every gay guy wanted to dress her, and they were all in Hollywood. So I tracked down the attorney, found out she had no representation, and I went down to a show which was the hottest show on TV. It was the hottest show on late night, called the Arsenio Hall Show. So I talked my way onto the set, and I met Claudia, and 3 of Arsenio's friends were hitting on her in the dressing room, and she wanted them to leave. And I just walked in and I said, hi, I'm John, I represent Claudia, you guys all need to leave. And they all got up and left. And then I turned to her and I said, you're beautiful. I'm just a stalker. No, but I literally walked in and I said, I'm John Ferriter, I'm an agent at the William Morris Agency, and I should be your agent. Talked for 15 minutes, she signed with me. 2 days later, I was talking to my sister, who's an attorney up in the Bay Area. She was a brand new attorney. And I asked her how work was going and, how are things and what's going on up there. And she said, it's okay, but, this weird guy comes in twice a week. He sits in a conference room, he signs all this stuff, and he's just a weird guy. And I said, well, what do you mean he's a weird guy? She goes, I don't know, he's just weird. He drives this big BMW, and he cruises in, and he comes in through the back, and he signs his artwork, and he does all this stuff. I don't know, he just creeps me out. And I said, well, what's his name? Jerome. And I said, Jerome what? She goes, Jerome John Garcia. And I said, hey, Pat, that's Jerry Garcia from the Grateful Dead. You guys represent Jerry Garcia? And she goes, I guess we do his tax accounting and his estate planning. And I was like, put him on the phone. So she hands him the phone, and Jerry gets on, and I talked to him for like 15 minutes. And I said, do you have an agent? And he said, no. And I said, okay, what are you doing tomorrow? And he said, well, I got to come back in and sign some artwork, and then I'm going to go shoot heroin, whatever he's doing. So I was like, could I please come up and meet with you tomorrow? I'm going to be there. And he goes, that's great, come on in, you can meet me. Bear in mind, I'd just gotten promoted. So I had gone from $18,800, which somebody here can do the math for me. It wasn't a lot on a paycheck. So I didn't really have any money. And I'd been promoted within the month before. So I took what I had. I got a ticket on Southwest. I flew into Oakland Airport. I rented a car. I drove into the office, and I signed Jerry Garcia. I had no plans whatsoever to be in the Bay Area. I had no plans to be in the office. And yes, I lied because I really wasn't going to be there, and I went up to see him. But here's the point. The phone isn't going to ring for you. You're going to make the phone ring, and that's how you make your career take off. So once I had Jerry Garcia and I had Claudia Schiffer, now I wasn't just John Ferriter, who I think is a new agent over at the William Morris Agency. I would call people up, and I would say, yeah, it's John Ferriter calling for Michael Eisner, who was the chairman at Disney at the time. What are you calling about? Oh, yeah, I represent Jerry Garcia from the Grateful Dead and Claudia Schiffer. If you could have him give me a call when he gets a chance. And then people call back. And I might be saying, hey, can we do a new version of the Mickey Mouse Club, which they own? But it's a matter of getting them on the phone. Here's the most important rule that I realized early on, and I said, I will subscribe to this no matter what. Everybody is talking to somebody. They may not be talking to you, but they're talking to somebody during the day. Everybody is. They're on the phone talking to someone. They're having breakfast with someone. They're working out with someone. They're having lunch with someone. They're having drinks with someone. They're having dinner with someone. Since you know that they do that, you just have to figure out how you get in their rotation. They're talking to someone. They might as well be talking to you. And the first time you talk to them, don't waste their time. So after I had those 2 clients, then I basically, said, hey, I'm going to go sign big actors. So I started calling all the big actors. None of them were going to sign with me. So then I said, you know what? I'm going to go sign all the big newscasters because they all need agents. And I started calling all the newscasters, and none of them would sign with me because they all had their representatives and they had no interest. So what I did is I said, I'm going to build my business in a different way. So I called every single radio personality I could find, anyone I had heard of that I thought was good, and I said, let me be your agent. You don't have to pay me on your radio deal, but if I get you TV, I get all of your business. Okay, so we then had a pretty good run. Do you guys know who Dr. Drew is? From Loveline, Dr. Drew Pinsky, from Celebrity Rehab, from Rehab, 9 o'clock on HLN, Life Changers, been a client of mine for 21 years. I signed him. You all know of a guy named Carson Daly? I found Carson Daly painting his fingernails in the middle of the night at a station called K-Rock, making $30,000, and I signed him, and I convinced MTV to put him on a thing called the Summer Beach House. Then I convinced them to put him into an idea they had as a countdown show called Total Request Live, TRL. Have you all heard of a guy named Jimmy Kimmel? Jimmy Kimmel was a guy who was doing some radio for K-Rock in the morning. He was called Jimmy the Sports Guy. I took Jimmy, signed him, put him into a presentation, then took the tape of the presentation. There was a piece of crap that was never going to air. And I took that tape, and I convinced a guy at Disney to hire him for a show called Win Ben Stein's Money. Ever hear of that show? All right, Jimmy won an Emmy for it. I had just signed a friend of his named Adam Carolla, and I took Adam and Jimmy, and we sold the Man Show. 130 episodes, made everybody rich, made both those guys stars. Then I signed a DJ from K-Rock named Kennedy, and then I signed 2 big DJs from LA. One's name was Valentine, who's still on the air down there, and a guy named JoJo Wright, who's one of the primetime guys they have. Signed a few other people, and then I sold a show called the Radio Music Awards. In the first Radio Music Awards we did, I put 3 of my clients into it. One I had just found in Canada, and I brought him down. We put his show on MTV. Within 5 weeks, it was the hottest show in America. His name was Tom Green, who to this day is still a very good friend. One of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, unlike Jimmy. And, and with Tom, I took Tom, a client of mine named Mark McGrath, who was in a band called Sugar Ray, and another client of mine who was the biggest musician in the world, Sans One, named Garth Brooks, and I put him onto that show to host the show. And while we were doing the show, there was a guy doing interviews backstage. Everybody that came off who won an award, this guy would jump out with a microphone, and he had frosted hair, and it was like the Jack in the Box jumping out. How do you feel about winning your award? And then he would go back. And I kept looking at him, and I thought, I got to talk to this guy because his energy is good. He's all over the place, but his energy is good. So as the business works, about a week later, Carson Daly started dating a girl named Tara Reid. She was doing a movie called American Pie. Tara, who I'd never met, told Carson, you should fire your agent and be with my agent. Carson, with the character, stamina, balls of steel, caved like a house of cards, fired me the next day, got engaged to her, broke up a week later. And I had built a whole template that I was going to do with Carson. I was going to make Carson the next Dick Clark. By this point, I had had enough success. I had signed Dick Clark, who was like the all-time host on TV. And Dick and his family had become personal friends and really good clients. We were selling shows left and right. So I had the template created. Now I didn't have Carson. And the template involved taking a person and combining their radio assets with their TV assets, putting them into some TV show that everybody would have to watch, and then build a production company out of it like Dick did, and try to take someone and turn them into like a 8-9 figure client. Anytime you have a 7-figure client, you're very happy. That means they're making 7 figures. As an agent or a manager, you're making at least 6 figures. You have an 8-figure client, you're doing pretty well with them. You have a 9-figure client, you're in the upper echelon. So I looked at this kid who had great energy but was all over the place, and I called him up and I said, and this goes to the competitive advantage, I said, look, you're really good at what you do, but your career is just crap. You have no guidance, you don't know what you're doing. So I'm going to do 2 signing meetings tomorrow. One's going to be at 10 o'clock, one's going to be at 11. Which one do you want? He goes, 11. I said, okay. You know what? I would have taken any time. I needed to get the guy in the room. But I knew the moment I said that, he realized his career was crap and he needed somebody with balls to come in and say, we're gonna drive your career in this direction. So the next day, the kid walked in and his hair was all frosted and he was doing this stuff. And I said, get rid of the frosted hair. And I said, I don't know what you're trying to do, but you have the reputation that you'll go to the opening of an envelope. No. You have to do something special. You have to be perceived as special. Your energy's great. Your DJ skills are pretty good. Your MC, stuff is pretty good. You have an inherent, you have a clock inside here. You can do live. So we need to do something that's live with you. So I signed him that day. His name was Ryan Seacrest.